Welcome to Biztech's CEO Conversation Show. Our guest for today is Srinivas Gattamneni. He's the Chief Executive Officer of ADA. ADA is a data and artificial intelligence company that designs and executes integrated digital analytics, marketing, and e-commerce solutions. It is the integrated digital advertising unit of regional telecommunications giant Axiata Group Berhad out of Malaysia. Now, Srini, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. Great to be here.
Now, Srini, for a start, give us an overview of ADA and its history.
So ADA has essentially three main kind of functions. One is providing marketing solutions to our clients, enhancing their brand visibility, their brand reputation online, driving more traffic to their website, their apps, driving conversion rate, engagement, all of that. The second one is e-commerce, where we help clients drive more and more sales online, either be it on marketplaces like Lazada and Shopee or their own website. And the third one is, say, you've done the marketing, you've done the commerce, now you need to engage with your customers. So customer engagement solutions, real-time communication, contact strategies, how do you keep them engaged, upsell, cross-sell on various channels like SMS, WhatsApp, all of that. And in a nutshell, if I put all of these three together, we are really here to grow clients' top line growth and revenue, essentially, using digital as a medium. So, I mean, looking back how we've grown over the years, we really started in 2018. We had, at that time, four main, I would say, theses, right? Our hypothesis was, one, the future of digital required media, content, data, all to fuse together. Back in 2018, if you recall, you had a separate media agency, you had a separate creative agency, you would have maybe a company like IBM, somebody doing your technology, and it was really a nightmare for clients to work with all of them. So we said, okay, let's solve that problem. Let's fundamentally go and fix what's wrong with agencies out there. The second big issue, which was, I mean, I never came from an agency background, and I found it quite interesting looking outside in, is agencies make money as a percentage of media, which, I mean, I just could not get my head around. So that means agencies are just designed to actually spend more of clients' money, because the more money of clients they spend, the more revenue they make. So we said, can we just completely tilt it and look at pure outcome-based models, value-based pricing, as opposed to just looking at percentage of media. The third one is, which I'm sure you'll agree to, is content, right? As consumers, I mean, over the last 4 or 5 years, the amount of content now we consume is just enormous. But clients' budgets don't scale with content. So how do you get content at 1/10 the cost, right? You still, because now you're consuming 10x the volume, your budget is similar. So how do you use a whole bunch of different tools, AI, and now, of course, you've got DALL-E 2 and ChatGPT and all that stuff. But back in the day, you didn't have all this. So how did you use different whatever technology that was available? And then the fourth thesis, which I think is finally playing out now, we used to call it at that time, tongue-in-cheek, humans need not apply. The whole point being machines have to apply more.
Yeah.
And how to use AI and automation in order to fundamentally disrupt overall agency world. And these are the four theses we started with. I think each of these have been more relevant at different points, but I think fundamentally all four of them are still as relevant today as they were 5 years back.
Now, you obviously, what was really interesting about ADA is the fact that you're an offshoot of a very large regional telco with, you're spread across several markets across South and Southeast Asia. How did that help you in terms of scaling the business as well very, very quickly?
So I think in the initial years, it was very much giving you, I mean, one thing, right, which telcos have been extremely good at is giving you a bit of structured thinking in your business proposition that you put forward. So day one, of course, we will get a lot of pushback. Why are you doing this? Is there a real market opportunity? What are you trying to disrupt? That was one. The second one was the initial capital helps, right? The capital from the parent company, Axiata Group, that helped quite a bit. That gave you, I think, sufficient cushion to go and build great teams. If I was just on my own starting an agency, yeah, initially I'll go look for a client, and then hopefully that client can pay for another person, and that pays for another person. And that's why you see most agencies generally get stuck at maybe 50 to 100 people, 2 million revenue. They find it hard to scale beyond that. But when you're born out of a bigger group, you have a bigger ambition, which is naturally given from the parentage. You're given the capital initially, and then you also can take on more risks to bring in great people together. And that's what, I mean, end of the day, a team is extremely important. And that's what really helped us, I think, as part of our Axiata Group.
And also, I think a statement within the market itself, if you go back to 2018, was the 20 million investment from Sumitomo Corporation. Suddenly, I think the market looked at ADA very, very differently, because obviously Sumitomo saw value in the business to inject that amount of capital, a very generally conservative investor.
Absolutely. And I think we fundamentally were solving a problem for Sumitomo as well. As you said, generally a conservative investor, looking at very tangible assets, oil and gas, telcos, etc. But they knew, I mean, Industrial Revolution 4 is here. Digital was the future, and they wanted to partake inside the digital revolution that was going on, and that was one of the reasons why they invested in ADA. And they had also another ambition, which is learning from what ADA was trying to do for clients, and then bringing back into their traditional organizations to help them digitize. So one of core missions of Sumitomo was always taking ADA's capabilities and driving a broader digitization of Sumitomo Group itself. So in fact, the person who oversaw and continues to oversee our investment in Sumitomo is directly the Chief Digital Officer of Sumitomo.
That's interesting, because one of the things that's happened, of course, is ADA has grown to be one of the largest independent agencies in ASEAN. And one of the key things that you talked about, your 4 thesis, which disrupts the whole industry itself, probably disrupts traditional media agencies, everything from Mindshare to WPP and Mediacom. Do you still see them as your main competitors as such? Or do you see the increasing tentacles of consulting firms like McKinsey and Accenture encroaching into this space?
I think, I mean, we still see the likes of WPP, Dentsu, etc., as direct competition. But like you said, I think the future competition is the rise of a digital service provider, which will have under its kind of umbrella the WPPs and Dentus of the world, definitely Accenture Song, definitely the big 4 entering with greater digital transformation capabilities. I think one thing that kind of sets us apart from, I would say, the consulting firms very much has been that we are out constantly executing 24/7 on behalf of clients, on their campaigns, on their creative, everything always on, right? I mean, we are there at 3 a.m. for a product launch on digital channels. We're there on the weekends. It's an always on engagement. It doesn't start with the project and just finish with the project. So it's very long-term relationships.
Now, Sri, I want you to perhaps give us an idea of how you've worked with clients over the years and some of the key success stories that you could share in terms of use cases and customer success stories.
Yeah, definitely, right? I mean, in the initial years, if you saw most clients' agenda and digital marketing transformation, it was very much measured on how much of my media have I moved from traditional to digital. Facebook, Google, TikTok, Instagram, etc. And what has been the ROI of that? So in initial years, 2018, 2019, that was the primary focus. So we would bring in technology, a lot of third-party data from various different sources, and drive really high ROI on all their digital media spends. Come 2020, COVID, every client was not just doing digital marketing, but actually doing all their sales as much as possible online, because there was no offline activity going on at that time, in part accelerated because of lockdowns. So now every client has an app or a website, or at least has a store on some marketplace. And now from 2020, the bigger measure is not how much of my media did I move to digital, how much of my revenue did I move to digital. So, and hence that's where e-commerce comes. And that's where finally what digital was always meant to do, which was drive revenue, now you get to actually prove it. So we work with the likes of Unilever, with the likes of Colgate, running their full online stores. We work with insurance companies, running their full end-to-end digital transformation, always within the marketing and sales area. Big banks, looking at banks like BCA or Bank Mandiri in Indonesia, looking at their full end-to-end, all the way from when a consumer sees an ad on Facebook, where did they track? Did they land on their website or their app? Eventually, what product did they buy? And then looking at those consumers, putting that data into maybe something like a customer data platform, understanding what are the behaviors of them, painting a clearer picture, going back and looking into Facebooks and Googles of the world and looking for lookalikes. And then bringing that back on and really creating what we call internally the digital flywheel, right? Creating it and actually running that digital flywheel from marketing all the way to commerce to upsell cross.
Now, Srini, have you seen with economies around the world opening up in 2022, have you seen a shift then in consumer behavior as access to brick and mortar stores and stuff have basically been reopened and it's business as usual in most markets?
So in 2021 and maybe the early part of 2022, the mantra was more and more time spent on digital channels, right? And everyone was talking about metaverse. We had some clients and we've done some projects on actually putting up their shops on metaverse, etc. Now, come mid-2022, people stopped talking about that. We don't see that much in the news anymore because now consumers are starting to shift more and more time offline too. So the bigger challenge has been online to offline integration. Okay, I see an ad online. Did I do offline? And if I saw something offline, did I do that online? So that integration with online and offline suddenly has become, I would say, priority as compared to purely digital. And I would say it's a bit cyclical, right? That used to be the case in 2019, 2020, because of COVID, et cetera, became completely digital, and now it's digital plus offline.
Now, how then do you see this playing out in terms of advertisers across the region? Do you see perhaps less of an accelerated shift to digital, or is that something that's here to stay?
I think that's definitely here to stay. What has happened, however, is there's been for, I would say, one reason which is definitely kind of volatile situation of the markets, reduced media spending in general overall. So and you can see that definitely in the reports that are coming out in financial reports of Facebook, Google, etc. The growth rates are declining on digital media. However, what brands are doing is, because they're focused much more on revenue growth on digital as opposed to just, hey, how much media did I spend on digital? They're focusing a lot on building what I would say their marketing technology stack or their commerce technology stack. This allows them to be more in control of the consumers, the consumer data. What are they selling to them? What are their contact strategies? How are they upselling, cross-selling on various channels? So much more focus on that as opposed to just on the media side of it.
So in other words, more performance orientated as opposed to just branding perspectives.
Yes, and performance of clients that they own on their own platforms. Maybe just I can give a slide, an example to show the difference, right? Previously, you would show an ad on Facebook. That user belonged to Facebook, not to the brand. But now, because brands are using, the consumers are using brands' website and brands' apps, that customer belongs to the brand. Now, what happens the minute it belongs to the brand? Brands get more data about them. They have direct access to them via email channel or WhatsApp or SMS. I can contact them anytime I want. I don't need to go through Facebook or Google. I can then drive more transactions. I can paint a clearer picture. I can understand more about their behaviors. I can do more cross-sells. So, and hence investing in technology to be able to do that better.
So Srini, and what you're alluding to is something very, very interesting, which the average decision maker doesn't really get. Essentially, then the third-party platforms like Facebook who were the disintermediators before are now being disintermediated themselves.
Absolutely right. And that's what you see. In fact, digital media budgets are shifting across to investments in marketing technology by brands, and there's better ROI for them because they are nurturing their own consumers better. But of course, having said that, I mean, they will still continue to spend on digital media, bring more consumers onto their platforms, nurture them more, spend, nurture them more. That cycle will keep going on.
Okay, in that case, I've got to ask you a key question. What are some key trends and innovations in marketing technology and the data analytics space that you expect to see this year and beyond?
And that the key trend, I would say two, right? Two fundamental trends. And there are many, by the way, but let me maybe distill it into two. One is more data available to brands, and hence, how do now I utilize this data? What systems and platforms do I put in place to make sense of it? Previously, most companies would have something called, and you would have heard, CRM.
Yeah.
Now, CRM is a system of records. It's interesting, but it's very hard to integrate CRM with every activity that I did on an app or a website, what you would typically call clickstream data. It's lots of data bits and bytes, very hard for CRM to actually process it and put it together. So now CRM is being shifted to something called customer data platforms, or CDPs. So CDPs now pull in lots of data from all your touch points and make better sense of the consumer. And from there, you can apply all sorts of machine learning, create better segments. You can do all sorts of then activation of various channels. Okay, now that I've made this particular segment, this segment bought that product on this particular location, maybe using this credit card, etc. Now I can activate them more on whatever channel works best for them. So there's definitely going to be a big rise of CDP platforms. The second one is, I think, has been in the news for at least last couple of months, a lot of usage of AI tools, right? ChatGPT, DALL-E 2, there are a dime a dozen now. And all of them are fundamentally making marketing more and more simpler and accessible for brands as well as agencies. You can write amazing copy. You can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I need to launch this particular product. Give me a marketing plan. Give me a social media plan. Okay, now you can go deeper and say, okay, give me what type of maybe a social media post I should be making. Give me some examples. You can go to DALL-E 2 and get an image, stock image. You can say, hey, show me a picture of a dancing elephant, and we'll produce that in seconds. So content copy becomes much more easy. Of course, you still require a human to make sense of it, to check it, to interrogate and give the right direction. But the skill aspects of it becomes much more accessible. And now you can do far more with that. And hence, really, I think automation is within the space has come, and it's just making it much more easy.
Now, Srini, I want to zoom back on ADA right now. What sort of numbers are you all doing in terms of top line and bottom line?
We do about closer to $300 million per annum. In terms of EBITDA or bottom line, closer to $30 million.
And what's the direction for ADA moving forward? Because you've last year you had another round of investment from SoftBank at $60 billion. What's the how did the capital? How was the capital deployed on that $60 million investment?
Yeah, so the direction is very much, we want to be kind of Asia's largest digital solution provider for brands, right? Doing their digital marketing and sales transformation. We're so far in Southeast Asia. We're definitely looking at 2 new geographies. One is India and one is Japan. Largely because, I mean, India is both a very large domestic market, maybe ahead of Southeast Asia a couple of years in terms of digital maturity. But also, India is an amazing source of talent that we can access and then deploy into other markets. The Japan, obviously, 3rd largest economy, but I mean, key for us, I mean, like you mentioned, 2 of our largest shareholders, Sumitomo and SoftBank, are Japanese, right? So we should be leveraging that, and that's why we're quite keen on this year entering both of those markets. In terms of the capital deployed, we are looking at some M&A for market access, certain capabilities, especially in the technology implementation space around platforms that we'll be looking at doing over the next couple of years.
Now, speaking of M&As, you basically did 2 that we are aware of. One is you acquired Singpost e-commerce business, and you also acquired Awake Asia's business. Tell us about those acquisitions and what they brought to the table.
Yeah, both are fairly similar, but so essentially what Awake and Singpost SP Commerce were doing were they were helping brands manage their stores online on marketplaces. So that gave us immediate, I would say, clients capabilities to run the full Lazada store or Shopee store or Tokopedia store and integrate that all the way back into the fulfillment partners. So for a number of different brands today, we actually run their full store, cataloging all the content, all the customer servicing online, and when a sale is made, integrating that all the way that sale information into the warehouse for logistics processing, right? So in fact, we get paid only when a sale is made and a percentage of that sale. And that's the outcome-based model that we always wanted. So that's the business model that we operate with, and that's the capabilities both these businesses essentially gave us.
It's been a fascinating conversation, Srini. I've learned a lot, and I wish you all the best with ADA moving forward. But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
Maybe what I would say is this, right? When we started off, digital made a lot of promise, a promise of solving age-old marketing problems. There was a lot of hype in 2017, 18, but there was a bit of a valley of despair. We've crossed that now, right? Now, finally, digital is proving top-line growth. Digital is proving bottom line. Data is finally here. Every brand now starts to own data. And data is now painting clearer pictures of our consumers. Data is being utilized for personalization. Data is essentially utilized for having more intimate conversations between brands and consumers. So the promise is now living up. But having said that, there's a lot of complexity within this space. I mean, recently we're just looking at, there are 10,000 marketing technology tools out there. I mean, imagine somebody who's not in this space trying to understand that, right? So So that's where I think most companies have to make sense of it. But if they do make sense of it, I think there's a lot of value to be captured from this whole digital domain.
Srini, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure.
We've been speaking to Srinivas Gattamneni. He is the Chief Executive Officer of ADA. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to Biztech's CEO Conversation Show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.